Hello everyone and welcome back. I was thinking of doing a guide on trade today, a pretty quick guide hopefully, because trade is not really that advanced in Victoria 3. It has some, aspects to it, but it is pretty much straightforward. So, this has been requested, and I was thinking, yeah, let's just do a quick rundown of what's going on. So trade in Victoria 3 has mainly 3 or 4 reasons for doing trade, and that is to balance out imbalances. Like you have over constructing or under constructing something is very expensive, or something is very cheap, so one of your buildings is unprofitable and stuff like that. And obviously to avoid deficits, it's the most straightforward one. So to avoid the shortage malice, so obviously avoid that at all cost. That's a really bad malice, and that needs to go away. You can tolerate pretty high and pretty low prices, but having a malice to throughput is really bad. So obviously avoid that, but you knew that already. That's the most basic form of trading, right? Look at my market. See that, I have a red dot over here. Let's get the game running. We can hopefully, yeah. So we are having a deficit on we're having a shortage of engines, which means that we are having a accruing penalty, which will accrue over time, and this will be reflected in how much of the shortage it is. This malice is horrible. Avoid it at all costs, right? But you know that already. The second reason why you should trade is that you could, if there are certain goods that are where the margins are great, so that they are price insensitive. Like, for example, lumber is the best example of this. Lumber uses very little inputs to produce a lot of output. You get so much, you get so much wood for basically very little input. One of the reasons that sawmills is the greatest building in the game. But also this makes lumber a very good commodity to trade, because there are really two things that you need to look for. A good that is, or a building that has that is very price insensitive, which means that like you use so few tools and you produce so much wood that if the price of wood or tools were to change, if tools were to become expensive and lumber to become cheap, this building has so good of a profit margin that they will obviously, yes, they will earn less, but they will still be earning, they will still be profitable. There's a lot of buildings where this profit margin is quite tight. Even very profitable buildings, say like, I don't know, steel or something, where if in a vacuum, if the input goods are net neutral, and the output goods are also net neutral in price, that will mean that this building is very profitable. But like a slight change, like you use so much of a good to produce, like the iron certainly like costs a few percentage point more, and suddenly the steel manufacturer doesn't look that great anymore. There are certain buildings where this is not a problem at all. Like lumber camps is an insensitive one. Most of the agricultural buildings are, obviously don't build them, but rubber plantations use some engines to produce a lot of rubber and stuff like that, mainly. And the resource, like the mines and stuff like that, also use a few inputs like motors and coal and stuff like that to produce valuable goods that you can export. The second thing is that they are construct efficient. If you want to do like an export oriented economy, the reason of doing it is that, well, okay, I don't want to be producing steel, for example, because steel is super expensive to build. Like, it takes 3 times the effort to build a steel manufacturer than it does a logging camp, say. So what you decide to do instead, that I will trade it. I will export. I will build. In the time I can construct 1 steel mill, I construct 3 or 4 logging camps, and then I export the wood, and then I import the steel from someone else, offloading the kind of effort of constructing and putting down steel mills. This is a perfectly reasonable way to go. The thing is that this is kind of a thing that only works in theory crafting, because a lot of, when it comes to markets and international markets in Victoria, it's all just adapting to the situation. I can never tell you because the market conditions would be vastly different in your game in comparison to mine. You would have different custom unions and all that. So it's really hard to say that, oh, well, you should do this during these parameters. But as a general heuristic, produce goods that are like easy to construct, lumber and mines mainly, and then you import stuff that is not very profitable, doesn't add a lot of value, and is really expensive to construct. This is like, for example, steels and engines and stuff. Like, obviously you want to be producing some of them domestically, but if you can help it, actually just try to import it as much as possible. This goes for agriculture products as well, right? Which leads us into the third and fourth reason why and how you should trade, is that you should be when you are on laissez-faire or interventionism, and you're not using the old construction mechanic where you could control where the investment pool goes. Instead, you have a private construction queue, which will build what it wants, and it will look towards what is some sort of profitability calculus, where okay, so this looks like it will make a lot of money. This profitability calculus is calculated basically the inputs or the outputs minus the inputs and what's the leftovers, right? So this means that if you want not only your government construction, but the private construction to be constructing the kind of the right things, so to speak, you want to be massaging or affecting prices in a favorable manner. For example, you want to be importing grain to make, not only for your population to have it cheaper, but also that will make the enterprise of building grain farms less favorable for the capitalists, because they will look at the grain prices like, oh, there's no money to be made here. Instead, and you would obviously want to raise prices for stuff that you want them to be constructing. So you could be even though you are constructing a lot of tooling workshops or rubber and logging camps and stuff like that, because you are going to need it. You can actually export it. You can overconstruct it and then you can export it, so that the capitalists will be like, oh, well, look, we have a wood shortage right now, let's build some logging camps. And so then you kind of direct their money the correct way, instead of them producing art academies or something ridiculous like that. You kind of want to be utilizing their money in the most efficient manner as well. So that means importing stuff that you don't want them to build, and that means exporting stuff that you do want them to build. So logging camps, tooling, coal and iron and stuff like that, perfect goods to export. And there are some buildings like Sulfur, for example, that are so damn efficient, so damn good to be producing, that you're actually like they are so good to be producing that you're looking towards buildings like paper mills and stuff like that for the paper mills is a like it's a pretty bad building, but since sulfur is so nice to be producing, that's okay, because in kind of the aggregates, it makes sense, because like sulfur is so good to be producing economically that like it doesn't matter, like the paper mills are inefficient, because in aggregate it comes out on top. So sulfur, if there is a market for it, if you can somehow, that's kind of the crux of sulfur. Sulfur is really efficient, but there's seldom a market for it to be utilized in. Obviously in explosives and stuff like that, but that's late game and stuff. But if you can create a market where you are kind of the sulfur producing behemoth of the world, you can totally just have a completely export oriented economy and just export sulfur to the world, and then import everything else, obviously under a free trade law, and that can absolutely be your game plan, right? But then, well, people need to be buying sulfur, and they need to not be producing their own sulfur, and that's pretty easy for them to do, because, well, every sulfur mine produces so much sulfur that few of them will actually cover their needs. The main drawback with that also is that sulfur is decently rare when it comes to, not in terms of how tall they can be built, but they are pretty rare where they are geographically, right? You have obviously you have sulfur in Sicily, you have sulfur in Saxony, and in Silesia and Germany. I think Russia has one in the beginning, a sulfur mine. But they are quite rare. Like every major country often has like one or two places that can build them. So that's really the crux there, if you want to become a sulfur empire. But that's basically it, right? Avoid shortages. If you're going to export stuff that is cheap to build and are price insensitive, and import stuff that you don't want the capitalist to build, and export stuff that they want the capitalist to build, so that they queue the right stuff, like tooling workshops and whatnot. That's basically it. Hope you found it useful. Good day.